Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, trying to get myself on the screen here. In any case, welcome to the program. It's March 29, 2023, and it is a Wednesday, the middle of the week. I pray, I hope, I wish you the best today, that you are in the best of health and that all is well with you. Now, I do hope that you did get a good night's sleep. Medyo, ewan ko sa inyo, ako hindi. I don't know, suddenly I was so hot. Hindi naman tayo woman, kanya hindi naman menopausal. But I guess it is the weather. And so please take care of yourselves. Please make sure that you stay cool, stay hydrated, and stay healthy. Okay. Today we are going to feature two guests, both of whom we have invited to help you navigate the unexpected next week in case you are traveling by air, you are flying to some destination, particularly passing through the NAIA, because there's been some confusion, some anxiety among people, especially on Facebook, because it has been announced that there were changes in the terminal assignments of airlines, but it doesn't seem to be so complicated. But let's find out why there will be terminal changes, and will it all be after Holy Week, or are there now ongoing terminal reassignments for airlines? We will talk about that. And of course, those of you traveling by air who might have worries about being bumped off, about overbookings, etc. Pag-uusapan natin yan so we can all know what to do, what to expect, etc. But before anything else, let's go to our daily starter, okay? And it is something I picked up from the TV series The Chosen. With the Holy Week coming up, I strongly recommend that you watch the series. I'm still watching it, and every time I watch it, it gives me so much to reflect on the life of Jesus Christ. But unlike many movies out there, The Chosen is not, highly spiritual or violent or overly dramatic. But it is very, very down to earth and very real. So anyway, the daily starter goes like this. News of this kind, it grows legs. This was said during a conversation among Pharisees, temple elders, etc., who heard of miracles being performed during the time of Christ. And they were worried that if they don't contain the situation, news of this kind, it grows legs or travel far. And in those days, they were concerned about such news reaching Rome and getting the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Jewish leaders into trouble. But in our modern day context, news of this kind, it grows legs. What kind of news grows legs? Well, rumors about food shortage, rumors about bank collapse, etc., etc. Unless and also even on a personal matter. So I know of some friends who have presumed that someone we knew was very sick. And they were saying, pare, si ganito ganon, may sakit. He's abroad having treatment. Sabi ko, ano kanyo? I just spoke to him twice this week. We are talking about business. He has never once mentioned being sick. So anyway, unless you are very careful, very prudent, you yourself could fall victim into victim of fake news okay, or rumors, gossips, and these things grow legs. So mag-iingat po. Anyway, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star. Today, March 29, 2023, the headline goes, ICC won't suspend probe on drug war. Marco says, Philippines disengaging from ICC. Okay. The International Criminal Court, or ICC, appeals body has rejected the Philippine government's request for suspension of the investigation on former President Rodrigo Duterte's bloody war on drugs and the activities of the so-called Davao Death Squad. In an 8-page decision dated March 27, ICC Appeals Chamber Judge Mark Peran de Bricambo noted the absence of persuasive reasons that would warrant the suspension of an earlier ruling allowing the ICC prosecutor to resume its probe on possible crimes against humanity. So yan po. Okay. At the top of the front, meanwhile, beside that front page headline, we have a photo from the Instagram account of the pambansang selfie king before. A photo from the Instagram account of Senator Bongo showing former President Rodrigo Duterte receiving a birthday cake following a ceremony to recognize him as an adopted son of Cagayan de Oro City last March 23. Okay, so ayan po. At the top of the front page, the Department of Justice has declared Congressman Arnulfo Teves is now deemed as a fugitive. Kumbaga, fugitive meaning someone wanted by the law, being hunted by the law, etc. So, yan po. Marcos, in the meantime, government addressing water woes. The administration is addressing the water crisis, President Marcos said yesterday as he reiterated the need to improve the way the country manages the water resources. Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Commission declared Philippines' refusal to accept the United Nations recommendation to end the practice of red tagging indicated the lack of commitment by the government to stop the practice, the UN Human Rights Council said. Okay, so yan po. May tama na tayo sa UNHRC, may tama pa tayo sa ICC. Okay. At the center of the front page, we have President Marcos leading the announcement of Pag-ibig Fund's regular and modified savings 2022 dividend rates of 6.53% and 7.03% respectively, both the highest since the pandemic. During the Pag-ibig Chairman's report at SMX Convention Center in Pasay City. Ayan po. Okay. Meanwhile, BBM said to the Pag-ibig, help us achieve housing targets. Now, return to April-May summer break push. After more than 100 students in Cabuyao City, Laguna, were rushed to the hospital due to heat exhaustion, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian proposed yesterday that schools revert back to the previous calendar where the vacation was during the hot and dry months of April to May. We need to bring back that school calendar. There's logic to why that was put in place. Two reasons. Number one, our elections are always during summer, so people will go out to vote because when it's the rainy season, people will not go out to vote. Okay, anyway, ayun po. Gusto niya ibalik na lang yung summer vacation sa April and May at not during the rainy season of August. Okay. Meanwhile, Jokno warns of fiscal collapse from warns of fiscal collapse from uniformed personnel pensions. Ay nako po. The Marcos administration is pushing to overhaul the pension system for the military and uniformed personnel to avert fiscal collapse stemming from higher pension costs. Finance Secretary and Economic Team Head Benjamin Jokno said yesterday. According to Jokno, President Marcos has agreed to reform the pension system for MUP to address the country's fiscal deficit. Okay, so ayan po, the current MUP pension system is non-contributory and as such, retirement pension and benefits are fully funded by the government through annual appropriations. Okay, his predecessors did not want to address this. It's the elephant in the room that nobody would like to touch. Unahan ko na kayo. Sabihin ko na sa inyo. From the way I read that and the way it sounds, looks like if you are military personnel or PNP uniform, Coast Guard, malamang at malamang yung mga bagong pasok, magbabayad na kayo ng contribution nyo for your retirement fund. Kumbaga, if government employees have a contribution to GSIS, if private employees and companies have a contribution to the SSS, then it only follows that military and uniformed personnel will be asked to contribute. Kasi po, totoo naman, wala ng pondong pagkukunan. That is why a lot of PNP personnel who retire have to wait months, if not years, to get their pension or their retirement fund. Meanwhile, last ugly news at the bottom of the front page, 3 kids, 3 adults dead in U.S. school shooting. Ayan po, litrato, and this is very different. A still image from surveillance video shows what the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department described as mass shooting suspect Audrey Elizabeth Hale, 28 years old, entering the Covenant School carrying weapons in Nashville, Tennessee. Ayan po. Hale, a former student, fatally shot 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults before being killed by responding police officers. Ayan na. Yan na po yung kabaliwan sa Amerika. Sabi nila, the land of milk and honey. Now it is blood and guts and gore. Okay, let's pray. Let us just pray for the victims and sana po magkaroon ng political will yung American leaders to just put a stop to this insanity because the blood of the innocents are forever being spilled in America. Okay, let's now go to our interview portion. It is 8:15 in the morning. And Gabriel, kindly roll out the Betamax.
Bryan Co currently serves as the spokesperson and senior assistant manager at the Manila International Airport Authority. He formerly worked at Philippine Airlines as the head of its Integrated Operations Control Center. Co was also executive consultant at the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines.
Okay, good morning, Brian. Welcome to the program agenda.
Good morning, Sir Cito, and thank you for inviting MIAA to your program.
Okay, and this is your first time on the program, right?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay, sa dami ng mga napagtrabahuan mo I've not had the chance. But today, let's discuss what's going on. First, the important topic. You know, a lot of people have been sharing, posting on Facebook that the Manila International Airport Authority is reshuffling terminal assignments for airlines. And this has led to some confusion because a lot of people are under the impression, number one, that it's happening now and it is in preparation for the Holy Week, that it affects local domestic flights, etc. And then some people started saying, no, it's only international flight, blah, blah, blah. So Brian, could you kindly do us the favor? Let's start with laying out why are we reshuffling or reassigning airlines and terminals?
Yes, Sir Cito. So, just to brief everyone, of course, this is part of our overall plan to improve the services and the experience of the passengers here at our NAIA terminals. We actually started to study and roll out this program not today, but as soon as we stepped in here in the MIAA when Secretary Jimmy and GM Chong went in. So we studied on how we can actually balance the terminal capacities, because at certain times of the day, these different terminals, we have actually 4 different terminals here at NAIA, would have different congested times and peak times that would not necessarily be optimal to each other's schedule. That's why we looked into the schedule of the different airlines, and we did this optimization or rationalization so that we can trim those unnecessary peaks or unnecessary congested times for these airlines. So we actually started last year already. Remember, in December, we moved a big portion of the Philippine Airlines flights from Terminal 2 to Terminal 1. We started by moving the flights to and from the USA, Canada, Middle East, and Bali. So we moved them to Terminal 1. That's part of the first phase already. And now we are gearing up towards the second and third phases. And this is more massive as compared to what we executed last December. But yes, just to share, it's not going to happen next week. It's not going to be in the middle of Holy Week. Of course, when we plan for these things, we do consider the different factors that could contribute towards successfully executing such a massive change. And we coordinated with the different stakeholders, starting with the airlines, of course, the many government agencies working at NAIA, because we need their support, and of course the passengers. We need to inform them in a timely manner. That's why we already started the dissemination last week. So we thank you for helping us disseminate this. And yes, we can discuss further, sir, when this will happen. And the first moves will be by April 16, which is after the whole week.
Before anything, Brian, could you clarify a point? It's a chicken or the egg question. Because you mentioned there are peak congestion times in certain terminals, and other times the place is like a cemetery. No one's there, there's nothing happening, etc. Now, who determines the volume, the influx, etc. in these terminals? Is it the Manila International Airport Authority, or is this all as a result of the schedules of international carriers?
Yes, sir. So ideally, when these international carriers or even the local carriers plot their schedules, it should incorporate the capacity that we have, not just on the runway capacity, but also on our terminal facility capacity. This would include considerations of the throughput of people, like the check-in areas where you get the boarding passes. Let's say for the final security screening, which you go through after you check in before you enter, going towards the gates. And for international flights, we have the international processes like the immigration and customs for those arriving. So that should have been in place before these different airlines would come in. The difference about NAIA is when we came in, a lot of the schedules are already there. So they've, over time, the past 40 years that NAIA has been here, these schedules have already popped up based on the requirements of the different airlines.
Yeah, but who's dictating on the schedule? Is it the carriers, or is it NAIA? Because I mean, you guys are static. You're there. You're service providers and regulators. But do you tell them, okay, you guys from Saudi Arabia or from the Middle East, you can only come in at this time schedule, and America, it's Canada, you come in. Who dictates?
During the early days, maybe in the 90s or 2000s, when the airport was not yet congested, a lot of the latitude goes to the airlines because it's still open, so maluwag pa. So they can plot the schedules according to what works for their network planning as far as commercial considerations and operations are concerned.
Okay.
But right now that NAIA, what we call NAIA, is a level 3 airport, which means it's a very congested airport already. So the authority has been asserting its, of course, prerogative in terms of assigning the flights, or in this case, reassigning the flights, so that the flow would work better as compared to having such discrepancies on the different peak times. So to answer you, sir, we are now doing a very proactive approach in terms of working with the airlines and the different entities as to how we schedule these different flights, so that they will be scheduled properly. Hindi yung basta-basta lang na may magsischedule based on what they need. It has to be a schedule that will work for everyone and that will benefit all of the passengers, not just a particular one.
You said, Brian, that it has to be a schedule that works for everyone. Now, does everyone mean the airlines and the MIAA? Or is it based on absorptive capacity, or does it also take into consideration passenger convenience? Because I've noticed, and I used to fly a lot, especially domestic, and I've heard complaints time and again na grabe naman itong mga airline schedules na ito, sabay-sabay, pagdating sa hapon, wala namang lumilipad. Parang the convenience of flying became secondary to the flying schedules of local airlines.
Yes, sir. So it's of course we consider those different factors together with the airlines. A lot of the schedule are based on how they connect different flights to different destinations. Of course, you would understand that in the domestic, most of the flights will depart in the morning, because a lot of the airports here in the Philippines are not yet night rated, so their flights are not yet spread throughout the day, compared to the different countries like the US, Europe, where you have all of their major airports is night rated. So that's a contributing factor. And another one is, you notice sometimes, why do all of these flights leave at the same time going to the Middle East? It's because they're catching on the connecting flights when they arrive in the Middle East, going into Europe, Africa, or the USA. So a lot of consideration, of course, is on a network perspective. But what we're doing right now is we're placing certain caps on certain times of the day, so that at this time, if it's already full, no airline can already come in and just plot a schedule which will negatively affect all of the other airlines in terms of the on-time performance, or the convenience of the passengers that are inside the terminal during those times.
Okay, having explained all of that, where are we now? So it's phase 2, reassigning terminals. I've seen a few announcements on Facebook, but honestly, I haven't seen an official post. So could we make it official? What are the movements? Who are going to be transferred? Where, when, why?
Yes. So the main reason about all of these transfers is us turning NAIA Terminal 2 into an all-domestic terminal. As you know, T2 was really designed, sir, as a domestic terminal, even in the late 90s, when that was designed by the French company. And that's why you notice when you arrive on the international halls, you'll see the lines snaking up, going up the stairs, the escalator, going towards the gallery, because the immigration area, the customs area were just put there, in a makeshift manner, and it's not really part of the design of the terminal. So what we're doing right now is putting it into its original design so that we may be able to increase its capacity. By removing international operations in T2, we automatically increase the throughput by around 20 to 25%. So
Yeah,
instead of
can you please repeat that and do it slowly? Okay, so first Terminal 2 will be an all domestic terminal. All domestic flights will emanate and land, enter through Terminal 2. Now, when we say domestic terminal, all airlines ba talaga? Or will it be a case of most of the airlines but some will still be spread to others?
Yes, thank you for allowing us to clarify. It will be a domestic terminal, but it's not our dedicated domestic terminal. So we will still have domestic operations in the NAIA T3. We will still have domestic operations in T4. But the difference is in NAIA Terminal 2, instead of it being a mix of international and domestic flights, by July 1, NAIA Terminal 2 will become all domestic. So what do we mean by all domestic? Certain flights from the other terminals that I mentioned, like Terminal 3 and Terminal 4, those of Philippines Air Asia. Terminal 4, if you've been there, Sir Cito, is one of the most congested places we have in NAIA. So on a passenger experience perspective, it's not very pleasing. They're putting all of the flights of Philippines Air Asia. That's why one of the things that we're going to do by July 1 is we will be moving the domestic network of Philippines Air Asia from NAIA Terminal 4 and NAIA Terminal 3, because they do operate from those two terminals, and we will be moving them to NAIA Terminal 2. But for us to do that, we will have to move the international operations of Philippine Airlines from NAIA Terminal 2 to NAIA Terminal 1.
Mhm. Okay, now there have been reactions because people are humans, creatures of habit. The PAL loyalists say, sarap-sarap ng buhay namin sa Terminal 2. We only fly PAL. Why are we going to have to relearn? And then some people say, well, Terminal 4 was already the Air Asia terminal. Why reconfigure? And what's this going to cost all of us?
Yeah. So we do take note that there will be some people that will be used to, how they do it in the past decades. You know that Philippine Airlines has operated po in Terminal 2 as their hub base for the longest time, ever since actually it opened in T2. It only knew one customer. It's Philippine Airlines, right? So, but of course, we know that the airline is growing, and for them to grow further, they would not fit anymore in just NAIA Terminal 2. That's why, in coordination with their management and to improve the service that we deliver to their international passengers specifically, we've thought of moving them to NAIA Terminal 1, because Terminal 1 is approximately, not too distant from Terminal 2. So in terms of interoperating their domestic and international network, that will still work for them. And at the same time, Terminal 1 has the capacity to accommodate the Philippine Airlines passengers for their international flights. And we do take note that there are before we did this, we have a lot of customer surveys in NAIA Terminal 2, and there were a lot of issues or complaints that were being raised by passengers in terms of their experience in NAIA Terminal 2 International, such as the lack of food and beverage shops, the lack of duty-free, because the NAIA T2 was not designed for international operations. That's why there were no provision for big spaces for shops, big spaces for F&B. And when we moved into Terminal 1, we do have big plans to set up more restaurants, and you have a bigger duty-free in Terminal 1. So those things we take into consideration as to how we can actually improve the experience of the passengers in the long term. Yeah, we do note that these are a lot of changes, but we really have to implement these changes so that we can improve the passenger experience instead of just doing a status quo and just dealing with the problems as they come.
Okay, Brian, we'll just go for a quick break. When we come back, let's go back to the reshuffle. You already said the Terminal 2 will be all domestic. Air Asia will pull out of Terminal 4, go to Terminal 2, and from there we'll take it up when we return here on agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda. And for those of you who might be joining us a bit late this morning, our first guest is Mr. Bryan Co, spokesperson of the Manila International Airport Authority. And we are focusing on the announced reshuffling or reassignment of terminals at the NAIA. Okay, now, Bryan, welcome back. And you mentioned already Terminal 2 will be all domestic, only for domestic flights. International flights will go to NAIA 1, Terminal 1, NAIA Terminal 1, as it was originally back in the days. And okay, so please continue.
Yes, sir. So as you mentioned, this is like a puzzle piece that we have to execute because something has to move first before we can actually move the flights of Air Asia Philippines to Terminal 2, which is the international flights of Philippine Airlines that we have to move to T1. But for us to move the remaining Philippine Airlines flights from Terminal 2 to Terminal 1, we do have to move some of the airlines in Terminal 1 as well, going to Terminal 3. So there are several airlines that were selected based on their schedule that would fit better in the bigger NAIA Terminal 3. As we would like to say, the NAIA Terminal 3 is the biggest terminal among all of the 4 terminals here at NAIA. It actually accommodates more than 50% of our volume on a daily basis. So we do have space to grow in NAIA 3, and NAIA 3 has the space for us to be able to accommodate more flights and accommodate more amenities for our passengers. So with that, we have several changes starting by April 16. This is after the Holy Week. The airlines that I will be mentioning will be moving from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3. These are Jetstar Asia. The Jetstar Asia serves the route of Singapore. Jetstar Japan, that goes to Tokyo, Osaka, as well as Nagoya. Scoot Airlines, also serving Singapore. China Southern, and Starlux Airline that serves Taiwan. That will be for April 16. And after that, by June 1, another batch of airlines will be moving from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3. These are Ethiopian Airlines, Jeju Air of Korea, Thai Airways of Thailand, and Gulf Air. So these will be the airlines that I mentioned. These are 9 airlines that will be moving from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3 on the 2 dates that I mentioned.
Okay, so you are freeing up space in Terminal 1 for the smaller volume international flight carriers, transferring them to Terminal 3, and then moving PAL International to Terminal 1. Will there be other airlines co-locating with PAL at Terminal 1?
Yes, sir. Actually, apart from the airlines that I mentioned that will be moving from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3, the other airlines that are that call their Terminal 1 as home will remain there. These are airlines such as EVA Air, China Airlines, Japan Airlines, Royal Brunei, and a lot of other airlines. So Terminal 1 will not be dedicated Philippine Airlines International Terminal. They will
Yun.
be co-located there with these other carriers. And most of the carriers that will be in Terminal 1 would have partnerships with Philippine Airlines. So on a passenger perspective, in terms of connecting to Philippine Airlines or having a code share agreement with these airlines, it will become more convenient for them. So that's also part of the program, is how we improve the interconnectivity of the different airlines here in NAIA.
Okay, so PAL flights international will be some of the international will remain in Terminal 1. What about connecting flights, local, carrying on to other destinations for PAL? They go by bus. What do they do?
Yes, as you mentioned, the Philippine Airlines operates both international and domestic, and they
Yeah.
do have connectivity on both of them. For international, once they are under one roof in T1, which is designed better for connecting passengers, because they do have passengers that only transit in Manila. That's part of their business. Like passengers from Thailand going to the US will transit here in Manila. That will help their feeder traffic. But we also have a large chunk of passengers that do not terminate in Manila. They arrive in Manila or they go to Manila, but they go on to the next leg of their journey, which could be a domestic sector. So having to operate in two terminals like T1 and T2, they will be connected by a bus link. So in terms of the connecting time, it will be still convenient for the passengers. We've coordinated with Philippine Airlines on how they can move the people between the flights on their domestic and international flights, and not just the people. Of course, we have to consider the baggage as well, and those things have been considered already in terms of the operational readiness to execute.
We're running out of time, Brian. So, two quick questions. What about Cebu Pacific? How are all of this going to affect Cebu Pacific?
Yes. As of now, Cebu Pacific operations will still remain at NAIA Terminal 3 and 4. They do operate right now in those two terminals. It's status quo for them. In the future, of course, we would consider moving all of the domestic operations in NAIA Terminal 2, but that will already require an infrastructure development. So we would have to expand T2. But for now, just to clarify to all our passengers, for those flying with Cebu Pacific or CebGo for their turboprop flights, they will remain at Terminal 3 and Terminal 4, and they are not affected by these changes this summer.
Okay, last question. You mentioned earlier there will be renovations, upgrades that will be required, especially for food and beverage at Terminal 1 and at Terminal 2. Who's going to foot the bill?
Basically, we have identified several spaces that are still unused, that are up for upgrade. So we've been inviting several proponents to look at these spaces, and for tenants to come in and bring in food options, shopping options for the different types of passengers that we have. It will not all be of course expensive brands, but we would have to have a mix of these different options for our passengers, F&B, shopping, so that we can cater to the different price points that our passengers are sensitive to.
So you're bringing in locators, investors, and not necessarily funded by the DOTR or NAIA.
Yes, we're just making the space available. And actually, as far as DOTR and MIAA, we will be improving our revenues as well by tapping these unused spaces.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving us so much information this morning, Brian. And I do hope that you guys are able to implement it smoothly, no headaches, and that the flying public will begin to to enjoy the MIAA even more. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, sir.
Okay, that's Bryan Co, spokesperson, Manila International Airport Authority. Simple lang, hindi naman po dapat nervyusin. Everything is a go and hey, let's see what happens. Okay, we'll go for a quick break and when we return, I'd like to speak to a lady, a lawyer, who can brief us regarding travel concerns, air travel concerns, especially yung mga bump off, mga overbookings, etc. here on Agenda. Okay, let's now go to our second guest for this morning. And Gab, if you would, please roll out the Betamax.
Attorney Maria Elben Moro currently serves as the Deputy Executive Director of the Civil Aeronautics Board. She has been with the agency for over 17 years. Prior to joining CAB, Moro worked for the Bureau of Internal Revenue.
Attorney Elben, good morning.
Good morning, Sir Cito, and good morning also to all your viewers, sir.
Naka 17 years ka na pala sa CAB. Ano yan, pumasok ka dyan, 17 years old?
Hindi naman, sir. Medyo, na rin, late 20s na din.
Oo, sabi ko na nga ba. Anyway, Attorney Elben, you are the Deputy Executive Director of the Civil Aeronautics Board. Now, for those of us who are not familiar with the CAB, could you explain what is the importance of the CAB for airline passengers and travelers?
All right, sir. Siguro, sir, very basic. Let me just explain the difference between the CAB and the CAP. I think worldwide, we're among those na naiwan na lang na dalawa pa yung regulator for aviation, no? The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines is in charge of the civil technical aspects po. Sila yung parang, if I may compare siguro, sir, no, yung parang LTO. So they issue licenses to pilots and crew and then yung specifications for the aircraft and registration. On the other hand, CAB naman po, the Civil Aeronautics Board, may be compared to LTFRB, siguro, sir. Mas familiar kasi tayo dyan. CAB, we issue naman certificates for the airlines operating to the Philippines and within the Philippines. And also, yung consumer protection natin, sir, particularly for air passengers, the CAB handles this po in accordance with the joint administrative circular between the DOTC pa noon and then the DTI, sir.
Okay, so now we are approaching Holy Week, and in fact, when we started looking at airlines and talking to friends, medyo maraming nilalagnat and nag-cancel na lang ng travel plans because they said they were shocked at the prices of airline tickets. Parang nagtaasan daw yata, etc. Now, with Holy Week coming in, what is the CAB preparing because I'm sure whether we like it or not, and no one wants it to happen, there will be complications. There will be nightmares such as delayed flights, overbooking, passengers unable to make it. In fact, last week, hindi ko na lang nabanggit doon kay Bryan Co. Last week, there were complaints of 3 to 4 hour delays at immigration in the NAIA. So, and people, especially foreigners, who were saying, this is not our fault. This is the fault of the government. What are they going to do about this? So, kanya, biglang sabi ko, tawagan natin yung mga friends natin sa CAB. What do they do? What interventions does the CAB do for this type of events?
Sir, Sir Cito, no, we have deployed a number of our passenger rights action officers in the airport, and syempre, as you have mentioned, it's a long weekend. Especially that April 10 was also declared a holiday. So medyo mahaba po talaga yung bakasyon, and we're expecting already influx of passengers because of the Holy Week and then the extended holiday. No? So we have deployed passenger rights action officers or PROWs in our airports, increased visibility. Pinakancel na muna natin yung kanilang mga leaves, so they'll be available in the airport, and we have dedicated hotlines for complaints po. Siguro I can just mention the number now. It's 16566. And then our PROWs also are trained to resolve conflicts or mga issues sa airport, and if not, they can endorse it or direct them to the legal division of the Civil Aeronautics Board, sir.
Okay, now what are the usual problems that crop up during long holidays, long weekends, or vacation? Kasi in Europe, it's the summer vacation and the Christmas season. In America, it's Thanksgiving weekend that becomes, the hell for travelers. Now, what usually happens in the Philippines? Ano yung mga usual problems?
The usual problems, sir, that we encounter are yung mga late sa pag-check-in, because before, sir, we used to have queues outside of the airport before you enter because of the screening, security queues. Medyo natatagalan sila when they reach. Maybe they reach the airport early, but before reaching the check-in counters, medyo kapos na sa oras. So these are the common problems na hindi sila na i-check-in, or sometimes you've mentioned also the overbooking, which is globally accepted practice. But of course, the APBR also mentions how the airlines are to address these problems also, sir. So ito yung mga tinitignan natin ngayong Semana Santa, na we also take the opportunity to remind the passengers to give ample time for them to check in, and ample time, yung mag-allot ng time for the traffic, for the queuing and all that.
Okay, now what are the house rules regarding, okay, let's start first with overbooking. Nag-check-in ako, and when I get to the counter, they tell me, sorry, we're overbooked. What are the rules as far as passengers who are, supposed to be on that flight, and then biglang, sorry sir, puno na kami. What are my rights, or what will CAB do?
Okay. Sir, it's mostly the airlines, no? When a flight is overbooked, the airlines have to encourage, or should encourage, passengers to give up their seats in exchange of certain amenities. Like, for example, the airlines can offer free round-trip tickets, or give compensation for the delays para po i-give up nila yung seats nila to other passengers. And the airlines should offer, parang it's an auction style, sir, where the airlines give more amenities or give more privileges to the passengers who would be willing to give up their seats. No? And of course, even giving these amenities or yung...
But do we have, Attorney Blem, do we already have a formula? Because I know in the US, may formula na eh. If the flight is delayed by 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, this is the remuneration. This is the dollar figure you pay the passenger. if the passenger is bumped off from a flight and he is processed to a connecting flight that will delay him by 3 hours or 4 hours, this is the compensation that the airline must pay the passenger. Meron na bang formula sa Pilipinas na ganon?
So far, sir, yung compensation in terms of yung monetary compensation, we don't have yet. But what we have is, for example, sir, the flight is delayed for 2 hours. The airlines are obligated to give yung mga snacks to the passengers, yung mga ganyan. Pero po, in terms of yung...
Pasensya ka na, Blem, natawa ako kasi I was reminded of a group of journalists traveling who were delayed. Konti lang naman delayed by 8 hours. And lahat sila mainit ang ulo. May dumating na tiga airlines, binigyan sila ng sandwich. And yung isang columnist na medyo senior at talagang punong-puno na sinabi, Iha, may pera kami. Kaya naming bumili ng sandwich. So, it brings home the point that, parang palliative care na lang, parang tapal lunas na lang. What is the CAB studying a more, a more serious system of penalties to put a stop to this?
Yes, sir. The APBR is under review actually, sir, kasi medyo 2012 pa ito. Nung mga panahong we were crafting the APBR, there were different issues, no? And of course, these issues are still present, and we're trying to amend also the APBR, reviewing it, and to consider all these things for better passenger experience.
Okay, now, so flight delays, kailangan magbigay sila ng pagkain, kailangan magbigay, they have to give drinks, etc. But up to how long will the CAB tolerate a flight delay? Kasi there are, you don't want an 8-hour stay at the NAIA,
Right, sir. Under the APBR, sir, if a flight is delayed for about 6 hours, the passengers, at his option, may consider the flight as cancelled, and therefore may ask the airlines for either to fully refund him, to rebook him, or to be endorsed to another carrier without additional costs. No, pag 6 hours na yan, the passengers can say, "Oh, I'm considering this flight cancelled, and please endorse me to another carrier." But of course, these are subject to availability also of seats, and or to rebook me to another schedule, or to be refunded, sir, of the full fares.
Okay, you are an implementing agency, I presume.
Yes.
So, hindi naman kayo pwedeng, hoy, mga walang yan kayo, gawin niyo to, ganon. You don't dictate, you merely implement. But who makes the decision? Because in my mind, 6-hour flight delay, I can probably drive to Batangas, Pier, take the 2-hour ferry to Katiklan, and I'll be in Boracay faster than it will take me to wait 6 hours on a delayed flight at the NAIA. But who is in charge in formulating this? Because hindi nyo trabaho yun you are an implementing agency. Who comes up with the formula? Is it Congress, DOTR?
It's the CAB, sir, conducts the study, Yung APBR natin, again, as I mentioned earlier, is a joint administrative circular memorandum circular between the DTI and the DOTC din. So, natin ito at inadapt din ng CAB for its implementation.
Okay. So, bago tayo maubusan ng oras, Attorney Blem, I really should have a longer interview with you para maintindihan yung CAB. Okay, so 6-hour delay, pwede mo na ipa-cancel yan. Okay, so they have to give you a full refund or rebook you, refer you to another airline. That's for a 6-hour delay. What happens when you show up at the airport? And this has happened to me at least twice. I show up at the airport and then they tell me, sorry, Cito, the flight's been canceled. Parang, teka, meron kaming event sa ganitong lugar, ang dami nag-iintay, paano gagawin ko? And it's evening, wala na, or late afternoon, wala nang ibang flights. What options does a passenger have for canceled flights?
For if the flight was not canceled at least 24 hours before and therefore nasa airport na kayo, as you've said, the airlines are also obliged to book you in a hotel to give you accommodations also, given that you're already in the hotel, or the option to carry you back, parang to give you transportation service also to bring you back to your home or to the nearest transport, siguro parang para makauwi kayo, yung mga ganun, sir, and hotel accommodations also.
Okay, so either they book you in a nearby hotel so you can stay there until the next available flight, or they provide you transportation to go back home, whether home is in Bicol or in Ilocos or wherever. Pasensyahan na lang. Sagot ng airport, ng airline yun, Attorney Blem.
If this is due to the airline's fault, sir.
Yeah, okay. Anything else you'd like to announce? Para lang, I think it's good that you shared with us the hotline of the CAB is 16566. We will try to flash that on the screen, and there will be airline passenger ano ka mo yun, Attorney Blen?
Passenger Rights Action Officers po, stations at the airport.
Yeah, Passenger Rights Action Officers stationed at the airport. Sila ba yung, may mga sash ba sila? Paano malalaman ng tao? Kasi
naka-IDs naman sila, sir, and naka-uniform. Wala po tayong pasash na sa
okay, I would suggest you do that, Attorney Blem, kasi it may sound funny, pero alam mo, sa mga malls ngayon, ang unang hinahanap ng tao, nasa na yung mga alley na may mga sash? Kasi sila yung pagtatanungan natin, etc. So it's a or merong parang placard, action officer. Anyway, any last minute announcements, Attorney Blem?
Ayan, sir. Again, I'll just like to say siguro, sir, yung ating hotline number is 16566, or yung hotline office number natin is 8852-8967, or they can also email should there be complaints po at apbr@cab.gov.ph. And also, sir, reminder siguro for those of us traveling na kung meron kayong mga needs, like for example, wheelchairs for senior citizens or the PWDs, to inform also and contact your airlines for assistance. And yun po siguro, let's keep ourselves comfortable and drink more water kasi po napakainit talaga sa labas, and to give ample time also before we travel.
Okay, pahabol na lang. Yung prolonged stay on the tarmac, basis of complaint ba yun? Kasi I keep getting text message, Kuyang, niluluto kami sa Chubibo. We are here like a hot dog in an oven. Can you do something? Para sabi ko, hello, sinong tatawagan ko nito?
Sir Cito, yung nasa tarmac delay, ang regulation natin dyan, as the third hour or second hour, dapat i-deplane na to mga passengers na to. They should
After 2 hours or on the second hour?
On the second hour, sir. So on the second hour, dapat mag-start na tayo ng deplaning. So pwede, but sa loob ng 2 oras na to, they should also be given yung sufficient nourishment, However, yung meron tayong threshold na 2 hours, sir, but of course, there are factors to be considered, like say, for example, may mga safety issues dyan or security issues, and of course, yung availability ng pag bunaba sila from the aircraft, meron ba silang paglalagyan sa airport? You know how the airports work. Pag may naisakay na dyan, may papalit na naman. So yung mga ganong factors, sir, these are also considered. But ideally, on the 2-hour mark, the passengers should be deplaned already. Okay.
Well, Attorney Blem, maraming salamat for your time today, and thank you, and may God grant you more patience, perseverance during the Holy Week. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Sir Cito. Good morning, and God bless.
Okay, good. Good morning. Okay, that's Attorney Maria Elben Moro, Deputy Executive Director, Civil Aeronautics Board. Okay, so nadinig naman yun. Their hotline is 165-566. Okay, 566. So, you heard the points, and let's now go to our blessing for the week quickly. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 13, and the Lord will make you the head and not the tail, and you shall only go up and not down, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you today, being careful to do them. God bless all of you. Please join us tomorrow if God permits, and please keep it here on One News.